Deputy Prime Minister Al-Thani, because Qatar is known for having taken some pretty risky foreign policies in recent years, certainly stepping forward. And I think Qatar is certainly a country that believes it has an approach regionally to reconciliation that is quite activist, is quite involved. Could you just share from your perspective less about the internal change, but the dynamics externally? In other words, to what extent can a country like Qatar play a constructive role in peace and reconciliation regionally today? It's in an awkward position with some countries allied to it, others confronting it quite severely. But with the United States, in a way, pulling back, taking a more transactional approach, it would seem that countries in the region, and I think this is what Sigrid Kaag was saying as well, are going to have to step up and play more of a role. How much scope is there? How difficult is it to play that role today?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Robin, first for having me today. And I would like just to commend all the participants here on their comments, which are touching really the heart of the reality. As you have just mentioned, we are living in a very complicated situation right now in the region, and Qatar has been taking a different approach in the foreign policy, yes, and has been very successful in the past decade. And it's proven in different areas of conflict. One of the examples is Darfur, where Qatar brought peace over there. Lebanon was one of the examples when they had the disagreement, and then they agreed, disagreement about the president, and they agreed to elect the president at that time when they had Doha agreement. Other conflicts Qatar is progressing in. One is Afghanistan. And Qatar had this unique position because of its size, its ability to move and to talk to all the parties in the conflicts. And we try to utilize these resources and these capabilities for the good, for bringing peace and reconciliation for those countries. But if the countries themselves, they are not entering and engaging these peace processes with good intentions, you cannot impose peace. We are just acting as a facilitator and as a mediator. But the main players are the parties of the conflicts. What you are going to get from the facilitator, whether it's a country or an organization, regional or sub-regional organization or international organization, is just a support. It's just a facilitation. And the main process should be driven from inside. Here, what happened in Lebanon, when you talk about a success story, because the process was driven from inside and facilitated by other friends and allies. Now, looking at it also from another perspective, when you look at those domestic conflicts, it all has a regional dimension and it has geopolitical dimension. My country has this geopolitical conflict right now with 3 of the Gulf countries, which really paralyzed the ability of the GCC to contribute for the peace and to be a force of stability as everybody expects, because the GCC in itself, its strength with its blocked. But if you have each country are acting separately, it has no power. It has nothing to do. And the GCC itself, as an organization, as a regional organization, which proved that it was the only successful model in the Arab region, unfortunately, now it appeared that it wasn't successful to solve its own conflict. So also we need to look at those regional mechanisms which should support peace and reconciliations in other countries, but also should make sure that these regions staying together have a clear understanding on the means of cooperation and the means of dispute resolutions. Right now, we have, it's more than almost 20 months since the blockade of Qatar, and nothing has been progressed, nothing has been achieved by the GCC as an organization. So it's becoming very complicated, and we need, as a region, we need to have an ownership, yes, but we need to act with good intention and good faith at the beginning.
One of the criticisms that I think has been made by your GCC partners has been that openness in a way to test the limits of democracy in other parts of the Middle East. In a way, the fear is that particular parties may get into power that then end up having one man, one vote, one time, if you see what I'm saying. So, and yet democracy is not something that, at least in the terms that I understand it, is practiced in Qatar. So to what extent is there going to have to be different horses for different courses, different options? And what credibility, though, can a country like Qatar bring to the table when, in a way, it is recommending a form of reconciliation that is highly different to the one that it applies domestically? Is that element of contradiction just, we're going to have to live with the diversity, and maybe diversity is what we need across the region? Does it limit your capacity to carry out this foreign policy?
Well, it's not. First of all, Qatar has never promoted that Qatar is a force of change by imposing democracy or others. What we are promoting, what the people want in those countries, that Qatar supports. And Qatar in itself is not a democratic country, yes, but it's progressing toward a people participation in the power, and it's not like stand still. And for me, if I want to apply a democracy, it doesn't mean that I have to apply specifically the democracy model in the West that will work in our countries and with our culture. Each country has its own culture and has its own way that democratic means can be adopted in. And Qatar, this is the policy has taken from the beginning. We have started a reform process where people participated, first of all, in the drafting, on voting on the constitution, then in introducing the democratic practice by municipality councils elections and women participation from the first election, then preparation for parliamentarian election, free media. A lot of other means of democracy are there in Qatar and practiced every day, but it's not called a democracy, yes. But what Qatar adopted as a policy from the beginning when it comes to the region, we stood against leaders who oppressed their people. That's what Qatar did. Yeah. During the Arab Spring, Qatar taken a position that's supportive of the people. And this position wasn't taken like when the presidents or the head of those states or those authoritarians are not taking any action or not conducting any violence against their own people. We didn't start until those leaders has conducted violence against their own people.
Thank you. Points taken. Promise Al-Thani, maybe to you quickly on, there was a comment about whether you still think the United States, Trump can be a reconciler or not at this point.
Well,
just a quick comment. I'm looking at time. We've got 4 minutes for 4 people.
No problem. I'll try my best.
For the 4 of us.
Regarding the U.S. role and can it be a reconciler in the region? Yes, they still can be a reconciler in the region because they are partners and ally of most of the countries in our region. I'm not talking specifically about the GCC here, but I'm talking about the bigger regional conflicts, whether it's what's happening in Syria, whether what's happening in Libya. U.S. is a superpower in the world. It's a fact over there. And with the absence of the enforcing mechanism from the United Nations, you have those superpowers need to use their influence in order to impose peace and reconciliation. Second, regarding the GCC conflict and why Qatar doesn't go the extra mile, I think our brother Khalid from Bahrain, if you will look back since the start of the crisis, Qatar has gone twice the extra mile while the other countries were unwilling to sit. And Qatar remained with its position despite the hostility which it's been subject to. And we tried our best to isolate this crisis from the people because we have interconnected families that they are allowed to come to Doha without any procedure. They shouldn't apply. They are not forced to submit a proof that they have a relative over there in Qatar. And there is plenty of GCC citizens, among them from the blockading states, are entering Qatar back and forth. And I won't report their names because I don't want them to be captured in their countries.
Thank you very much.